From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana, Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Afghanistan's health system on the brink of collapse. U.S. Capitol police officer who distracted January 6 insurrectionists gives first interview. President Biden committed to naming black women to Supreme Court. Female footballers demand right to wear hijab in French competitions. Rohingyas' relentless struggle to overcome barriers to education. 93 sites of potential human burials found near residential school in Canada. Our top story tonight. The World Health Organization, or WHO, issued a statement Wednesday warning that Afghanistan's health system is on the verge of collapse. According to the statement, over 2,000 medical centers in the country are either closed or facing closure due to international aid drying up. Healthcare providers in Afghanistan, especially COVID-19 hospitals, are struggling to serve patients as they lack critical materials and facilities. That includes essentials such as heating, fuel, power, food, vaccines, medication, and medical equipment. Most of the 37 COVID-19 hospitals nationwide were shut down due to budget shortfalls after the Taliban took over the government, according to Afghan health authorities. The WHO called on the international community to find alternative funding for primary health care in Afghanistan. U.S. Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman, who saved the lives of lawmakers during the January 6, 2021 insurrection, broke his year-long silence on Monday. Goodman appeared on the podcast Three Brothers No Sense. He said the insurrection could have easily been a bloodbath. Goodman led rioters bent on attacking U.S. lawmakers up the stairs and away from the Senate chamber that day. His heroics were caught on camera in a now viral video that came to light during former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. It showed Goodman also guided Senator Mitt Romney back to the Senate chamber, helping him narrowly avoid contact with the rioters. Goodman said he kicked into go mode and relied heavily on previous military training to guide him during the insurrection. An attorney for the former Louisville Metro Police detective awaiting trial for his role in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor is seeking to close part of the court proceedings. Stu Matthews filed a motion trying to bar journalists and the public from watching individual voir dire, which is the questioning of potential jurors. Matthews is representing Brett Hankison, who is facing 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the March 13, 2020 shooting. Taylor was a 26-year-old African-American woman fatally shot when Hankison and 2 other white police officers forced entry into her Louisville, Kentucky home. The Attorney General's office, which is the special prosecutor in the case, filed a motion opposing the closing of individual jury questioning. As well, the Courier-Journal, joined by the Associated Press and WDRB Media, have said they will oppose any efforts to close court proceedings, attorney Michael Abate said. The trial will begin February 1st. U.S. President Joe Biden is committed to naming a black woman to the Supreme Court, White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said Wednesday. Her remarks came hours after multiple reports that Justice Stephen Breyer is stepping down from the top court at the end of the current term. Breyer served as an appeals court judge from 1980 to 1994 before becoming a chief nominated by former President Bill Clinton. When asked if Biden will pick Vice President Kamala Harris for the court, Psaki declined to speak about any considerations, preparations, lists. During his presidential campaign, Biden pledged to nominate a black woman if he was elected. A Jewish activist supporting Palestinian farmers in Burin, a village in the occupied West Bank, was injured in an attack by a group of Israeli settlers. Doron Meinrat, a 60-year-old Jewish peace activist and a member of the Olive Harvest Coalition civil movement, said support for the Palestinians comes at a price. A group of masked Israeli settlers beat him and other Jewish peace activists who supported Palestinian farmers planting olive trees in Burin on January 21st. Meinrat was wounded in the head and arm in the attack. He told Andalu agency Video News about 20 people ran toward the activists with sticks and benzene. Prominent Jewish American groups urged Israel on Tuesday to rein in ongoing terrorism and political violence committed by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank. An investigation revealed 93 sites of potential human burials in a small area around a former residential school in the province of British Columbia, Canadian media reports. The sites were identified during a survey of the St. Joseph's Mission Residential School and nearby Onward Ranch, CBC News reported. Whitney Spearing, who led the probe, said they were detected with ground-penetrating radar along with aerial and terrestrial light detection and ranging sensors. According to Spearing, some of the sites may be connected to a known historical cemetery, but 50 appear to have no association with it. The investigation focused on 34 out of 1,161 acres of land identified as areas of interest, the report said. Kashmiris across Pakistan-administered and Indian-controlled Kashmir on Wednesday observed India's Republic Day as a Black Day. They protested New Delhi's withdrawal of the decades-long special rights of the disputed Jammu Kashmir region starting in August 2019. Tensions have been mounting between the two nuclear powers since then. People gathered at rallies and protests in Pakistan-administered Kashmir, including its capital Muzaffarabad, to denounce India's move. In Pakistan, national flags were hoisted at half-mast in Parliament, the presidential and prime ministerial residences, and other government buildings, Pakistan television reported. Government ministers, parliamentarians, and politicians also attended rallies in various parts of the country. We're bringing more news stories after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Friends, our world is pulling together like never before. We're making huge sacrifices to keep one another safe. Scientists are working non-stop to develop COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. A vaccine will get our economies moving. It will tell our loved ones we're safe again. But we have challenges we must address. Right now, huge pharmaceutical companies are keeping the vaccine research a secret. They're deciding how many vaccines get made, how much to charge for them, and who gets vaccinated. This will no doubt leave billions of people behind. Pharma companies are putting profit, not people, first. Yet, billions of dollars of taxpayers' money is funding their work. We cannot let the CEOs of a handful of pharmaceutical companies decide our future. We need a vaccine that everyone can have free of charge, no matter where you live or whether you're rich or you're poor. We need companies to share all their research so we can make enough safe vaccines for everyone. We need a vaccine owned by all of us. To end this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to pull together once more.
Welcome back. Hijab-wearing footballers played an impromptu game in Paris's Luxembourg Garden behind the Senate, protesting a decision banning them from sports competitions.
Notre identité, qu'on ne voit pas pourquoi on devrait l'enlever. Il n'y a aucune raison, il n'y a rien dans la loi qui dit que le voile n'est pas en cohésion avec les valeurs du sport et avec le sport. Donc je ne vois pas pourquoi on nous obligerait à l'enlever. Il n'y a vraiment rien qui justifierait cela. Et surtout, c'est quelque chose de personnel et d'intime. Et il n'y a aucun droit, il n'y a personne qui peut nous demander de l'enlever.
Même si l'État ne veut pas, nous on jouera.
A Syrian neighborhood bombed by the ruling regime lies in ruins, with bodies and broken toys poking out of the rubble. Tall grey buildings are reduced to crumbling, empty shells, their walls blown away or pockmarked by the blast. This scene has been captured in devastating detail by artist Khalid Dawa, a Syrian exile and prison survivor who now works in France. In his colossal work titled Here Is My Heart, he urges viewers not to forget the revolution by the Syrian people and all their sacrifices. The 36-year-old artist is deeply scarred by years of repressive rule and violent crackdowns, as well as the loss of friends killed, missing, or imprisoned. Dawa's work is an act of revolt and memory targeting the international community's inaction against dictatorial regimes in Syria and elsewhere. Saifullah Muhammad works full-time as a community builder in Canada while also pursuing a master's degree in peace and conflict studies at the University of Waterloo. Muhammad fled a cycle of persecution in his home of Burma's Rakhine state with his parents in 1991. He and thousands of refugees took shelter in Bangladesh, which is currently home to nearly 1.2 million Rohingya Muslims, most of whom fled a genocidal military crackdown in August 2017. Like them, Muhammad grew up in congested Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh's southern district of Cox's Bazar as a member of a stateless community. He managed to leave the camps, get into high school, and later pursue an honors degree in Bangladesh, he told Andalu Agency. Muhammad earned a scholarship to attend Chiang Mai University in northern Thailand. Today, Bangladesh's government has put barriers to education for Rohingya refugees. According to Human Rights Watch, they are not allowed to seek education outside of the camps. Inside, UN humanitarian organizations and NGOs are barred from providing Rohingya children with any formal accredited education. Nigeria's KWARA state on Tuesday reaffirmed its stance of allowing Muslim girls to wear hijab in public schools. The state government released a policy statement declaring it will not tolerate any form of religious bigotry at educational institutions. Authorities met with Muslim and Christian leaders over the headscarf issue. State Commissioner for Education and Human Capital Development, Hajia Saadatu Modibu Kawu, said allowing willing Muslim schoolgirls to wear the hijab in all public schools, including grant-aided ones, is binding. She called on Muslim and Christian leaders to allow peace to reign in the state. The government announced last year it would allow Muslim female students to wear hijab in all schools in KWARA. The global Islamic funds market grew more than 300% over the last decade to reach nearly $200 billion in assets under management. That's according to a report released Wednesday by Bahrain-based General Council for Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions. Islamic assets under management grew 13.7% in 2020, despite the COVID-19 pandemic. That was slower than 35.1% growth of 2019, the report said. Islamic funds growth in assets under management showed signs of recovery last year, rising to $194.51 billion at the end of the third quarter. That was a 17.1% increase from the end of 2020. The sector is in its infancy compared to conventional funds. Mariam Khan made history Wednesday, becoming Connecticut's first Muslim woman endorsed as a candidate for the State House. She was nominated for Connecticut's 5th district seat representing Windsor and Hartford. Khan says part of her motivation to run is setting an example for young Muslim women. She said youth need to know they can be both Muslim and part of the community. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September.
I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table.
I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3.
are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the health crisis in Afghanistan, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Afghanistan, whole America was interested in airlifting people. People raised millions of dollars airlifting people. So 100,000 plus people came out. And then that was the end of the story. What about close to 40 million people who are left behind? And what people are all busy, pro-Taliban, anti-Taliban, dialogue, no dialogue, things like that. Fact of the matter is we're talking about a whole lot of people, 40 million people. And currently the news started coming out about healthcare situation. Yesterday, International Red Cross person, after a 4-day visit to Afghanistan, depicted a very dire situation. He said 2,000 healthcare centers are already shut down. And for months, people have not been paid. So focus on people, which is missing. So we have someone whose focus is on people, specifically healthcare of people, Dr. Nadia AKSEER. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Welcome to Muslim Network TV. Dr. Nadia AKSEER is at the Johns Hopkins Bloomsburg School of Public Health as a physician and a scholar. Tell us, what is the situation of healthcare right now in Afghanistan?
Thank you so much for having me and for addressing this important topic on your show. Really, the situation is exactly as you've stated. It's a dire healthcare situation for the Afghan people. These Afghans have been essentially abandoned after 20 years of foreign intervention in the country from the World Bank and many other donors who've come in and stated that they care about Afghan basic human rights and therefore spent time there and resources there developing the healthcare system. And after doing this for 2 decades almost, the political situation changed and the donors have just dropped out. And because of that, there's no money. So without money, the health facilities cannot run, people are not getting paid, the essential commodities that the people need are not available and not accessible. And not to mention the other issues going on with mobility and women's empowerment in the country that limit women's access to health facilities, even if they were in place. So amidst all of that, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. There are about 3 million COVID vaccines that are sitting unadministered in fridges in Kabul, which are going to essentially be unusable within a matter of weeks. So this is the situation. And on top of that, there has been a brain drain. There has been a health professional brain drain in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion, also prior to that, and now again. So health professionals have left, many of them among the 100,000 that evacuated, and the ones who are currently there are too scared to go to work, are not getting paid. So they're not going to work. And this is it. Essentially, Afghanistan's healthcare system has essentially collapsed within a matter of weeks. And ultimately, the ones, the individuals who are suffering are the civilians, the children who need the vaccines, the mothers who need to go get that prenatal care visit, and, just the poor population of that country.
It is in some newspaper, I have read that people were not even being paid several months before Taliban took over. So there seems to be a crisis which was already there, and suddenly everything was left on Taliban, who know nothing but fight, to administer that. So why people were not being paid even before Taliban took over?
Has always been vulnerable. It's been there, it's been donor funded, and it hasn't gone without its complications. It hasn't been an easy ride. So as an example, the World Bank, who has been coordinating the healthcare system and funding it for a long time, they've been struggling with how to channel funds to the NGOs who are actually delivering healthcare services in Afghanistan. You know, what is the model they want to use? So they're constantly learning and trying to improve on that model. And because of this, there have been delays in contracts given to NGOs. And because of that, NGOs don't have money to pay their health workers to come to work. And so this has been the situation in Afghanistan, and it's something, you know, it's a very vulnerable context. The health system is vulnerable. It's something that the donors have been trying to work on improving, and, you know, getting these contracts out in a meaningful way, in a timely way, in a way where, you know, it can get to you will edit this, but into, you know, the hands of the NGOs who need it, so they can pay their staff, purchase the commodities, pay for the infrastructure, and so on. But there have been delays in that process, and because of that, you know, people haven't been getting paid for months. On top of that, the insecurity situation in Afghanistan has been also volatile for many, many years. And in the months leading up to the Taliban taking over, it has been especially heightened. Conflict, insecurity, bombings, and violence just all over the country had been heightened. And those are some of the reasons why people, you know, the monies were not going to the NGOs that needed them, and people were not getting paid.
In a post which you have made along with other health professionals, you say 80% of the funding was coming from European Union, USAID, and World Bank. Mm-hmm. And of course, you mentioned all of those people have stopped funding, and not that the situation was good even before that. And you suggest that maybe NGOs and organizations who are taking care of health of people need to be directly funded by NGOs and individuals around the world. But at the same time, Dr. AKSEER, there is a big talk, even in the House of Representatives yesterday and Senate before, that Afghanistan government collapsed because of corruption. So do you see the same level of corruption is in the NGOs and the entities which individuals and organization in America can feel free to support and help?
Absolutely. I think corruption is a really big problem in Afghanistan. And in fact, when you compare Afghanistan to other countries in the world, on a metric called the Transparency Index, which looks at corruption across the world, Afghanistan is ranked one of the highest countries, tied with a couple others, in corruption. And that has been happening for years. So absolutely, corruption is a huge problem in Afghanistan at all levels, though, at the highest level of government, but also, you know, down the stream at the local level too. Corruption exists in local markets and all the way up the chain. So corruption is a widespread problem in Afghanistan. And that means it's also an issue with the NGOs. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the World Bank and these donors have been hesitant and delaying contracts to NGOs, because they're unclear on how the monies are being used. The transparency is not there. Accountability is poor. And so there are a range of different issues on why the funding had been delayed as it was. And I think those issues still exist. We did make the suggestion that if the donors did not want to work with the new government directly, they could contract the NGOs, but they would need to do that with some accountability metrics in place. They would need close coordination with these NGOs on the ground to make sure that the money is really going to the services and the commodities that the people need. So absolutely, I think corruption is a problem, but I do think it's something that needs to be addressed because the people need the healthcare services. So there needs to be ways around this.
You know, Doctors Without Borders have been in Afghanistan since the 1980s. And it's a pretty reputable organizations in their system and processes. And in terms of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, I have visited them multiple times. They are essentially the sole provider of health services. Can their operation, because people in America around the world will have confidence on Doctors Without Borders, it is a known entity, and they probably are employing a whole lot of Afghans in their work as well. And if 2,000 clinic is shut down and they can scale their operation, probably more individual would like to fund Doctors Without Borders. So would you think that is one model in which individuals who are watching our program can contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, at this point in time, we need all hands on deck. Any innovations and models that we can use with people, so long as they're willing to go to Afghanistan. That's one thing we need to consider as well. It's not the safest and most secure place to be at the moment, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But so long as Doctors Without Borders or other health professionals are willing to go, it's absolutely a model that we should try, because the situation changes by the hour in Afghanistan. There's no time to think and to test out different models or think about what's going to be most ideal. I think if people want to go and can go, they should absolutely go. Obviously, keeping in mind that safety and security is a concern. I'll also say that I think bringing a new player into the game, into Afghanistan, in terms of a group who can deliver healthcare services, might be challenging, in that the existing NGOs that are there, they've been there for decades. They have established relationships with the community. They have an understanding with the local people, and they have a trust. And they understand the culture and the context, and they also understand the needs of that particular community, because Afghanistan is very diverse. There are 34 provinces, many different cultures, ethnicities, languages. These things influence people's health. And those NGOs that are there, they're very well versed in their communities where they exist. And they also have a trust with them. So they understand the needs of those communities very well. Again, I think in a longer, for a more sustainable model, in the next year or so, efforts should really focus on working with those NGOs that are there, that exist, to help them protect the continuity of services. And in the meantime, I think Doctors Without Borders and other groups who can provide immediate care in the humanitarian crises should absolutely make efforts to go.
Are there some physicians here in the United States with the Afghan heritage, or people who know the area, can come up with a task force which authoritatively issues a list of, say, here are the 10, 20 well-established, well-respected organizations who are taking care of healthcare, who could be funded? I mean, at this moment, in America, Muslims have hundreds of charities, and they contribute, just Muslims' contribution in charity to the countries they come from is close to $5-6 billion a year. And there are people who would love to contribute. But at this moment, nobody seems to know. Everybody is talking about politics, not people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. There is a huge diaspora community around the world of Afghans who have left Afghanistan at some point in time, including myself, trained abroad, who are now skilled professionals. And we want to give back to Afghanistan. We want to help. And I absolutely think there's a role for us to play, to come together, to think about what are the needs of the people of Afghanistan, especially for health at this moment. What are our resources that we have? And to come together and come up with a plan. Lots of people I know are doing fundraisers, their own way of giving back. But I think one thing that's missing is coordination. These efforts need to be coordinated. And I think we can have a much bigger impact if, like you said, there was a council or there was some kind of task force, a coordinating body that can bring the diaspora together in the USA, in Canada, really all over the world where Afghans have gone, bring us together and say, okay, what are the priorities of the Afghan people? We all care. We all want to help. Let's bring our resources together, our experience, our expertise, our skills, and think about how we can use these to give back and help the Afghan people immediately, and then also in the long term.
Dr. AKSEER, what can people do to deal with this situation in which focus primarily is on politics and Taliban, and we don't want to talk to them, we don't want to deal with them and hold their money, while there are people who are urgently in need of help? I mean, can the US government and the Canadian government and the European Union, they figure out how to help directly with these people who need help? I mean, what is possible? I mean, can the conversation focus on people and providing help them directly instead of being blocked by the ideological fight with the Taliban?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the goal. That is the vision. You know, I think these groups such as the World Bank and other donors, they often, their whole agenda and mandate for their organizations are based around basic human rights for people and giving people access to basic health care. And so I think these organizations need to really think to themselves, you know, what are we missing here? Why are we getting caught up in the politics when we should be focused on the people and their health and their human rights? You know, step back and really think about their vision and their goal for their organization before they get caught up in the politics. And I think that's an important step that needs to happen. Right now, there is a lot of confusion, you know, among donors because they don't know, they don't trust the new government. They don't know if they should trust the new government. Because of that, they are hesitant to continue sending funds and so on. And that's an understandable concern. However, at the same time, you know, the people of the country are suffering. And that's something that they need to be thinking about seriously and thinking about, you know, what does our organization do? Oh, that's right. We protect basic human rights. And that's what they should be focusing on mostly, not the politics. They're not politicians. Their role is to help, you know, many of these donors to help development and health and growth in countries. And I think the organizations need to step back and really think about that. And then alongside, you know, come together and be innovative in thinking about how they can actually deliver healthcare services. It's not enough to say it's too difficult or we don't want to give money to the new government. There has to be other ways. You know, this is 2021. We can be innovative. We can be creative. We can think of new ways to get in there and to get resources to protect the people.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nadia AKSEER with the Johns Hopkins Bloomsburg School of Public Health. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.